Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Agent is In. This is episode 39, and we're going to talk about editing tabular files like Etsy default grub. This was something that was brought up on one of our post-show discussions, so hopefully you guys will find it useful. Feel free to stop me at any time if you've got questions. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
All right. So, the question that was brought up was somebody needed to edit Etsy default grub and the grub command line Linux or grub command line Linux default values. So that's like a quoted list of values. Let's see here. Grub. So if we look at it on my system, right, I've got grub command line Linux default and quoted space separated values, and then grub command line Linux is just an empty list right now. So, all right, let's see here. Well, maybe before that, maybe we pull up, take a look at the field edits documentation. So if in the documentation, if you go to reference, promise types, files, edit line, field edits, you'll find the documentation about field edits. It's got just two attributes, edit field and select region, and edit field is where most of the action is. When I came to read the docs, it was great because this very first thing mentioning about was pretty much the pattern that the person was asking about. So normally when you look at this pattern, at least when I look at this pattern, I would think that this would be the separator that I would be wanting to look at. But since we're wanting to edit these values inside the quotes, it's actually better to use the quoted value as the separator, so that you can have the value separator being a space, and then you can edit these things individually. So that's where those docs are. And before we go look at that, let's look at in the master files policy framework. Let's see here. Here's the, excuse me, edit field bodies. So there's a few that we can take a look at here. So FS tab, that's not going to be what we're looking for. But then there is this quoted var. And if we look at this, the field separator is going to be a double quote. It's going to select the second field, use space as the value separator. The field selection here is more about the key value, I believe. And then you've got the value that you want to have in that area and the operation that you want to do. So that's going to be something like append, prepend, alpha num if you want it to be sorted alphabetically, like all the values, set to make it just whatever you're giving it, or delete to make sure that that value isn't there. Extend fields. I don't remember what this does off the top of my head. Let's see here. Let me look at the docs. But I do remember that it says, if in doubt, set this to true. But it's false there. I don't think it has any effect on what we're doing here. Blank fields and tabular data can be eliminated or kept. It doesn't matter for what we're doing. And then allow blank fields. This one you definitely need. Otherwise, it won't close off the quote. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this stuff looks like. So let's lay down some CFEngine policy here. Okay, so first thing I want to do is Etsy default. I want to have a file that we're going to be testing with, and I want to seed this with this content over here.
Notice the quotes that you used.
I
used backticks.
I used backticks because you can use single quotes, double quotes, or backticks to quote a string in CFEngine. And then you don't have to escape the other type. But I noticed in these strings that, right, there's a single tick here, a single quote here, and then double quotes here. So that's why I chose backticks, so that I don't have to mess with escaping them. Content. All right, great. And then let's do reports. Let's see here. Let me grab this. Print file, cat, this dot promiser. Okay, that looks right to me. Let me run that. Okay. So it laid down our test file here with the content that we specified, and then it printed out, looks like I've got some white space that I maybe don't want. So let me just try that again. There we go. All right, so we've got our test file laid down. So next, whoops. Let me just see here. Next thing we want to do is start modifying this. So we want to make a promise about this file, and we want to use edit line attribute, and then we'll want to use a new edit line body. So let's say let's see, default grub, and we won't have it take any parameters for now. Let's see here. Bundle edit line. Oh, you know what? Better to put this over here. Bundle edit line Etsy default grub. And in here, it's, where did it go? All right, we're looking at field edits. Files, edit line, right? So we're writing an edit line bundle. We're going to use field edits promise type to identify the line, and then we'll use, we'll try that quoted var edit field body from the standard library. So let me move that out of here. So let's see, field edits, and then we want to target grub command line Linux equals anything. So this will be the line that we're going to field edit on, and then it'll be edit field, and then what was that, quoted var, and that took here it is. So it takes new value and the method. Okay, so entry, and then we want append maybe. All right, so how about like IPv6 disable 1? That's a kernel option. IPv6 disable 1. Okay, we want to append that. Okay, so we've got our promise file. We're going to use Etsy default grub. Quoted var is going to come from the standard library, and we want to make sure that this IPv6 disable equals 1 is appended to this grub command line Linux, which it does not currently have. That looks right to me. Let's see what happens when we run it. Yeah, it did the right thing. So it injected IPv6 disable 1 into there, like we expected. Although, okay. So what if we want to modify this grub command line Linux default one? All right, so we've got quiet, got a bunch of options in there. Let's add on to that one as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit inside of this edit line body. Depending on what you want to do with these options and how you want to control them, you may or may not want to expose up some different parameters so that you can do that from the promise level rather than having it buried deep in the edit line. Then again, if this is something that you're trying to apply widely across the organization and you really don't want people to be tweaking that around, it might be better to have it buried down inside of the edit line body. So let's target Etsy Linux default. And let's say, what's another kernel option? How about init on alloc? We run that, it errors. So field edit, no fields found by the promise pattern using the double quote. Errors encountered actuating on this grub command line Linux default. And of course, if we look at this, indeed, right, single quotes instead of double quotes. So we can't use the quoted var for that that's in the standard library. It doesn't handle that. So let's go ahead and make our own. Edit field. Body edit field, and we can call this single or double quoted value. Is that an all right word? Single or double quoted value, but it's actually, we're going to target a sub value. All right. We're going to need to take the same parameters. So entry and method. And here we can basically pull in. So if I split this, look at this again. So here's our quoted var that we're kind of going to base from. So if we do inherit from quoted var, then we can take entry and give it a method. So we're going to basically pass through the same parameters that are normally passed to this, but we are going to override the field separator. And if we look at the docs for that again real quick, oops, field separator. So this is a regular expression. So we should be able to use this to target either the single or the double quote for this. So I think if we do, right, maybe so I can escape that one or single quote. And then if I come up here and say use my body instead,
you got your filed separator instead of field right there in that line. It's a typo.
thank you.
You're welcome.
F-I-E.
You have all the right letters, just not in the right order.
You know, that dyslexia is hard stuff. Okay, so this looks right to me. So we'll use quoted var on this one for now, and we'll try single or double quoted sub value on this one that failed. So let's run that. Appended subfield. So let's look down here. So this one's still right. And if we look down here, hey, init on alloc 1. So it's in there. And we can build on that some more. So this is buried kind of deep in there right now, but maybe we want to make this a little bit more reusable. So we can take a param here for maybe the key. If we want to do it all the way up here at the promise level, right? So then we can say grub command line cmd command line Linux, and then we'll also give it IPv6.disable equals 1, and then we'll also give it append. So key entry method. And here, instead of this, actually, let's just do that one. And then here, we can say key. So find the key, and then use single or double quoted subvalue. And then let's use our parameters here. Entry and method. So now,
Put your dollar parentheses around method.
Oh yes, thank you.
I'm your
syntax checker.
Natural intelligence.
My
syntax
LLM
checker. Your RLM, regional logical. Yeah. Whatever.
All right. So good. It looks like it's oh well, splash. Oh yeah, of course, because I'm still resetting the default up here every single time while I'm prototyping this, and now I've only made this one promise. So if I want to edit it a couple of different ways, should have quoted this. Let's quote this now. Oops. So this is also so reusable pattern here, but it is less efficient, and this will cause multiple IO operations on the file to do it this way, rather than kind of packing it all together and then sending it into the bundle, which we could adjust to by passing it a data structure or something. But let's go ahead and, what was the other one here? It was alloc init on alloc.
Something like that, yeah.
Equals 1. So let's append that, and then let's also, while we're here, we can do quiet and delete. So we can make sure that this will be in the default. Sorry, the long lines are annoying me. Okay. That looks right to me. So let's go ahead and run it. Did I run it? I might not have. There we go. All right, so let's look down here. All right, so quiet is now gone from our default. Alloc is there, and grub command line Linux is there. That took much less time than I expected this to take. Let me see here. Does that make sense, Craig? Any questions about how this is working?
Yeah, and so the reason that it's less efficient is because if you put all of the changes that you want to do inside your edit line bundle, the CFEngine kind of pulls the content out, does all the changes, and then sends it back out in that one kind of
Right. For
operation.
each file's promise, it's looking to do one operation on the file. So
And the logging says so, basically, right? What's the
yeah,
logging say?
if we look here,
So it's like
um,
edited,
appended,
appended.
repaired, edited the file, right? So each time it's like,
Yeah,
I edited this file, so I appended this field and then edited the file, deleted
right.
this
Yeah.
in the
So it's like
buffer
editing the file multiple times.
file.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we didn't see that when we had, I think I already duplicated this down here, didn't I? No, I didn't. So if I shrink that down again, so I'm wondering here, if we look at, if we pass it like a data structure here, let's say conf grub and line Linux IPv6 disable 1. Let's see here. So we had IPv6 disable 1, and then we have init on alloc equals 1. And this is default. And then this was quiet and delete. Okay, so if we make that change, and then here, instead of passing that stuff in, we'll do this dot namespace, this dot bundle dot conf. So we'll pass the name of that data structure. And then here we'll do data, what do you call it, D. And then in here we'll say vars, and then we can do I'm going to pull the data structure in locally and then make a copy of it inside this bundle, and then keys, we can get the indices off of S. That first index should be the keys that we are looking to manage. And here we're going to iterate on, so we're going to look up S keys. And then this will be S keys 1. This is not right. What's not right here? S keys.
So your data has yeah, the first element is keys, the second element is entry, and then the value is method.
Is that right? I feel like I'm doing something not quite right here. And then this one be S keys.
So what does your data look like again?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at that.
So you've got a
So first key
classic
is the
array, a
key. Yep.
two-dimensional classic array, right? The
Mhm.
first dimension is the key. Second dimension is the entry, and the value
Sub-value.
is the method. So it seems like you would need to iterate over the first element, or the first dimension keys indices, and then also iterate over the second dimension.
I
You'd
don't
have
want
to
to do
iterate over both.
2 iterations. I just have to look them both up, I think.
Okay.
One, right?
I
So
don't know how you
sub-value.
would do it otherwise, but yeah.
So quoted sub-value. I want this one. Well,
So wouldn't like conf1, so like if you did conf1 0, that would be your second thing. Conf1 1 would be quiet, right? Conf 0 0 would be IPv6 disable.
you can put a little bit of debugging in here.
Exactly. Yeah, just
So
examine
we'll
it.
do conf. All right. So first of all, we can do.
You could also do that check with with and store JSON. Right?
Yeah, that's a maybe better.
It just shows you the whole thing.
Yep. So down here, reports, and then we'll do with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see what blows up. Oh, no reports promise out of
Yeah.
out of the edit line.
Right. So you've got a
Why?
I wonder if that's a bit deceptive. Yeah, but
I
definitely
need to
like
get the keys again.
your keys are the first bits there, and then sub that you've got other. Yeah, it seems like you'd have to do two sets of
So then we can
iterations
do
somehow.
map of let's see here.
This is where Nick could be really handy if you could just write some Lisp in here. If you do some of your eLisp. I feel like eLisp is very good with dealing with lists of lists.
Yeah.
No.
It is, but I'm not very good with eLisp, even though I use Emacs a lot.
We don't yet have
brain
support for mixing declarative with non-declarative code.
keys 1. What happens if I do keys? So what if I do 2 here? I don't think this is right. No, that's not right. Well, maybe Thursday morning is not the best time for me to embark on.
I think this is a call for left as an exercise to the reader.
Left as an exercise. Yeah, that's fine. I'll probably fix it in a little bit here.
Oh, I
But
know
for
you
some
will.
reason, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, it's dropping out.
This reminds
Yeah.
me that I've often wanted to write like a blog post or something like that, talking about just to kind of like working through a bunch of examples of like data, how to iterate through complex data, that kind of stuff. I don't know if we may have done that already. We'll have to look that up.
What if I do this? And this is a S list of get indices on S keys.
Yeah.
And then so
Yeah,
that's
that
going to
should
give
get you
me
the
the
sub things.
values. Right. right, so I'll do I need to look up map keys, right? And then this would be, this doesn't look right to me. Map keys. Yeah, that's right. So then this would be keys, map keys.
You need an S in front of that keys to get into the whole thing to begin with. Yeah, maybe. Looks exciting.
It does. It didn't work though.
Nope.
Well, I'll leave that as an exercise for everybody else. But
We'll put it in the show notes, right?
yeah, we'll put it in the show notes because I will
Yeah.
figure it out in a little bit
Yeah,
after I've
exactly.
had a second cup of coffee. But we did make it through, a couple iterations on building up, kind of deciding where you wanted to do those edits. I think it was this one here, yeah, where we had, if we look at this output. So I was headed back toward this, right, where we do all of the edits within a single edit line bundle. And then if we look at this output compared to what we were looking at before, it does multiple field modifications before it just modifies the file one single time.
Right.
So that's kind of where I was headed with this data structure down here. But I need my second cup of coffee, I guess, before I can dereference that in my brain.
Yeah. The thing I like to remember as a sub expert, possibly novice policy writer, is that is like what you did, was just looking it up in the promises and files and field edits and everything, but then immediately going over to the master files standard library, which is also on the docs website, and searching for examples of those kinds of promises and bodies and bundles and stuff like that, because there's a lot of great things to use in the master files and the standard library. So
yeah, so it's under reference, master files, policy framework.
yeah,
and then
just
the
choose
file
the right
tree is
lib.
here, right? So files.cf.
Yeah.
What we were
And they're kind
at.
of organized by promise type, more or less.
Type, right?
Yeah,
So
lib files, lib packages, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So here's our quoted var one.
Yeah, and so there's a bunch of stuff in here that's really useful, and often it's a great example of how to do it. And then you can look at this and see what the source is, and like, oh, well, I just need to adjust the field separator.
Exactly. I need to override
like
one little thing, which you can do then with inherit from, which is nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a cookbook.
Yeah. It's an interesting cookbook. All right. Well, I mean, that's pretty much it as far as doing some field edits on tabular files and things like that. I think that the important trick there is that, maybe the thing that you might naturally want to use as the field separator is not always the best thing to use as a field separator if you're in the situation of editing like a sub values. So something to think about there. And then of course, taking this further, I was only focusing on editing this file content, but of course, the next thing that you would logically do after this is, trigger, maybe make grub or something like that based on the repair. So, all right, welcome back. So after the show, I walked away to refill my coffee, and sure enough, kind of the solution came to me. So just to get back into where we were, we had made this policy a bit more reusable by exposing up some parameters so that we could just reuse this Etsy default grub edit line promise in different contexts. But this is less efficient because each one of these files promises, if it requires a change, it's going to be an extra file operation. And we can see that in the execution result, right? So we can see IPv6 disabled was appended to grub command line Linux, and then the file was edited. And then init on alloc equals 1 was added to grub command line Linux default, appended, and then the file was edited, and quiet was removed, and then the file was edited. And we had started to embark on maintaining the ability to have it be flexible and useful in different contexts, but still kind of minimize the I/O operations. And I realized when I walked away that this data structure that I chose was poorly chosen. This is better in a little bit different structure. So I did make those changes. So I wanted to show you. I switched to a data variable type rather than using associative arrays. You can still use associative arrays for this, but I just found this a little bit easier for myself to read. So I switched. And I also changed this. So instead of just passing the name of the data structure where the data was, I went ahead and passed the data structure itself, similar to how you pass a list. So then down in here, right, from that data structure, we call it conf map in here. We get the keys, so that'll be etc or grub command line Linux and grub command line Linux default will be those keys, and then we get the methods for each key. So for grub command line Linux default, we'll get prepend and delete, and for grub command line Linux, we'll get append. And then that allows us to kind of look up everything at one time. So we'll look for the line, like grub command line Linux, and then we will look up the values for the method that we want to use, and then the method. And there's a lot of expansion happening here, but the key thing to note is that there's only one iterator. Keys is the only list that we're iterating on, and we're using that one variable to look up the information in different places. So let's go ahead and run this, and we can see that IPv6 was appended, and init on alloc was prepended, and quiet was deleted, and then there was just the single edit operation to the file. So this iteration gave us more flexibility and still minimized file I/O operations. Again, natural thing to do to build on top of this would then be to run make grub or whatever else you need to do after editing the file to make the effect take place. So, thanks. We'll see you next time.